is 4 o'clock, so I'm going to go ahead and get started. Welcome to the first Microstream of the year, January 6, 2025. Happy January 6, everybody. Today, I am going to be photographing a piece of limestone, some fossiliferous limestone, that was given to me as a gift by my friend Cam. Cam, if you're listening, can you DM me or send me an email or something and confirm how you pronounce your last name? Is it Muscally? I am too much of a coward to ask you in person. Cam's a really cool guy, and we first linked up in the real world at SVP in 2023 in Cincinnati. He came up through Kentucky and collected a bunch of stuff, and this was a piece that he gave to me, so that's super cool. Everyone say thanks to Cam. And I'm just going to be looking at this piece under the microscope, taking some photos. This piece comes from the Kope Formation of eastern Kentucky, and it is Upper Ordovician in age. And I guess I can quickly, let's see. Yeah, so we're looking at something around 450 to 445 million years old. So quite old. We're talking about animal fossils. So there's pieces of trilobites on here. You're looking at one in the center right there. I think that's part of the tail, the pygidium. And there's just fragments of fossils all over this piece. So for the next hour, I'm just going to be zooming in real close and, taking photos and seeing what we can find. And I'd also like to share a few updates about Shadowbox, which is the free museum that I just released. So while we look at this nice piece, I can read out some of the statistics. So Shadowbox has been a project that I was working on for quite a while. The actual development began about 14 months ago. But everything I've been doing on Patreon, which includes Microstream, has all been kind of converging on some kind of interactive experience that puts all the effort that I've been putting into research in the last, since August of 2022 is when I launched this project. So somebody do the math. It's been quite a while. It's been over 2.5 years, I think. And all of this kind of converged on building a 3D virtual interactive museum that I released for free on January 1st, right as the clock ticked over. This was in, forget what the time zone is. We were in Pennsylvania, so this was on Eastern time. I was hanging out with my partner's family in Allentown, and we stayed up until midnight to hit the button. If you're really into video games, you're certainly aware of Steam, which is the largest PC gaming digital distribution platform. That's where you can get all different kinds of games and other sorts of software. And Steam is what I'm using to distribute Shadowbox, so you can go onto Steam right now and search for Shadowbox, and you can download it for free, which is pretty cool. And if you're interested in kind of what releasing software looks like under the hood, I had to not only click to confirm that I wanted to release a software, but I also had to type out the phrase, "I want to release my game now." Paraphrasing, but they want you to be very, very sure that you're releasing it before they'll let you do it. And this was, and you have to get checks done ahead of time. I had to put $100 down to even submit the software. So it cost me $100 to release this stuff. So currently my profits on Shadowbox are negative $100, and that's okay, because the whole point was to kind of show off not just what I'm capable of, but what I think the field itself is capable of, and kind of falling short of its promise in some ways. I'm really frustrated by the lack of, really engaging material that people in paleontology put out. There are so many people who put out, videos that go up on YouTube and stuff like that, and they vary in quality. I think some of them could do a bit better job of a research. A lot of them use, especially images, photo and video that is not their own, so unoriginal content that isn't particularly well researched. And there are some people who make original stuff and put quite a bit of research into what they do, so it's not universal. But I don't know, I basically don't engage with paleontology on social media, all that stuff. I don't watch those videos because, I don't know, I kind of, as a scientist, trust my own research more. I have people that I think do a really great job, but I still want to come to my own conclusions, so I go to the research itself and read up on that sort of thing. So there are people who do a really good job, but I think if you really want to come to original conclusions, which is kind of the whole point of being a scientist, right, being a paleontologist, I really highly recommend not relying on other materials to help get you there. And to be completely contradictory to what I just said, I create stuff on Patreon that I'm really proud of, that I put a ton of time into researching. I create things. The project is called the Parent-Teacher Guide to Paleontology because I am trying to create materials for parents and teachers and any adult, right, who has a young person in their life that they really, somebody who is really into paleontology, really wants to know more, and you just might not know how to get them that support. So I'm here to make sure that you don't have to do all of that hard research yourself. If you do want to be a paleontologist, I would say a lot of what I make I think is going to be interesting to you as well. But keep in mind that doing your own work is going to be so much more rewarding in the long term than simply relying on learning from other people. But it's part of a process, I think there's kind of a lack of, good, solid resources for other people to learn from. And then I think there's a lack of inspiration for how people should themselves create new things and test out, their own creative enterprises and stuff like that. So part of what Shadowbox is my way of showing what I think the field should have been doing for the last 10 years, with all of this fancy 3D scanning technology that every big museum, all these large institutions, have had the ability to create something like Shadowbox for about a decade. And yes, you can find virtual museums that have been created. None of them look anything like what I've created. They rely on really low poly. You're either looking at really low poly models and not actual fossils, or they're real fossils, but they're not put into a kind of interactive context. So something you'll find are web pages that will host 3D scans of dinosaur fossils, which are really cool, but that's all they are. So I wanted to try to create something that could show more than that. And part of the reason it's free is that I am not a professional software developer. I don't feel comfortable taking people's money for something that I can't guarantee a certain level of quality, right? Again, I'm really proud of what I made, but it's not going to run perfectly on everybody's system. That's just a fact. And there's a lot of really cool stuff I'm hoping I'm going to be able to do with it, but I can't guarantee that I'll be able to figure it out. So that's part of it. But also, I want Shadowbox to be the floor, right? I want this to be the standard. If by you, I mean if you're a private individual or you represent an institution and you want to create something like this, and I hope looking at what I've done inspires other people to create things like this, and you want to make money off of it, you want to sell this product, I want you to keep in mind that you've got to outdo me. You've got to make something that looks better than mine. Okay? You've got to provide more content than I'm going to be providing. And I fully intend, certainly through the rest of this year and hopefully for long into the future, to continue packing even more into this project, to keep building new exhibits, opening new exhibits, improving the ones that I have. I've scanned over 100 fossils last year. I'm going to try to at least do that much, if not double it. We'll see what happens. The year is young. So if you want to, if you're from a big museum and you want to try creating something like I've created, and you want to be selling it at a premium, do better than that, you know? And I want to see it. I want to see people do that. I want to see big institutions with huge collections put weight behind really digitizing this stuff, hiring software engineers, hiring artists, and building something that can put my little free project to shame. Do it. I hope you do. But I also strongly detest the push to monetize, right? I strongly, strongly object to the way that so much of this industry is already commercialized. And it really bothers me that, you know, when I went in to start building this, I was worried, you know, if people do take this idea and run with it, as I'm hoping that they do, is this just going to be another way that really wealthy, you know, well-funded groups and individuals continue to run laps around people like me who don't have a lot of funding to go off of, right? People from parts of the world where fossils come from, but money does not flow in to help locals actually research what's local to us. And so part of my pride and joy of this is by devaluing something that could have been commodified. All the scans that you see in Shadowbox I'm making available to look at for free, those are assets that somebody else, you know, could try to sell, and believe me, they want to. But they're going to be competing with the fact that I've got my own versions that I put out for free. And in that case, when I'm talking about stuff that's in a public collection, in a legal sense, there is nothing stopping any other person who is qualified to access a research collection from taking their own scans themselves. So all that said, I'm really excited to see how many people have checked this out and immediately recognize that this is something new, and this is something that more than my own excitement, other people are looking at this and seeing the potential to build more, to keep producing more and pushing this and seeing really how far we can go. It's so frustrating seeing this dying industry, right? Paleontology has a horrible job market. It is so difficult to get into paleontology, even though there's such a high demand. So many people want to do it, so few ever actually get to. It's so confusing being one of the privileged few who can, and yet that's really the only privilege I've got in a lot of ways, you know? It's hard making a living. I operate on a very lean budget, we'll put it that way. And I'm trying to use that privilege to open the door and let people who might not ever have the chance to go into a public collection or to find a place where they can collect their own material, because a lot of what's in Shadowbox right now is stuff that I've collected throughout my youth, my childhood, my teenage years. Now I could, as I'm doing this, try to narrate what I'm looking at, but a lot of this stuff is new to me, right? I work in vertebrates from the late Cretaceous. This stuff is hundreds of millions of years older than that, and they're fragments. So part of what I'm doing right now is taking pictures for me to look at up close later and try to figure out what I'm looking at. So keep that in mind while I'm scrolling around, looking at all these little pieces. I try to make it really clear that there is my lane. There are things I know a lot about and things I don't. And just being a paleontologist makes you well equipped to learn new environments really quickly. But that does not mean you should ever assume that, like, I know everything about everything. That is an absurd claim that I would never make. I hope by the time I die, I understand to a certain, to whatever degree of fidelity anyone can. I hope I understand like 1% of the full natural history of the planet, right? Figure we've got 600 million years of the fossil record globally from all over the world. Anyone who claims to know everything about the story of life, everything about paleontology, is a huckster and a liar. So don't get suckered in by that. And Shadowbox and PT Paleo in general, all of the articles that I've written for that, totaling over 176,000 words of material that I've written, all of that stuff is stuff I wouldn't necessarily have made the time to actually sit down and research had I not started that Patreon. And as always, I'm really thankful to people who donate, who sign up to actually see that stuff, because you made that possible. You made me able to justify working on this, and you guys are the reason that Shadowbox could have been made. So that's something to keep in mind. This is almost certainly a little fragment of a brachiopod, one of the really common invertebrates in the Paleozoic, which includes the Ordovician. Could not tell you which one. Brachiopods look a lot like bivalves, but they are not bivalves. They have two valves, but they do not belong to the order Bivalvia. I think this is another trilobite chunk. So I've got some numbers over here on what's going on Shadowbox. I'm the kind of person who really likes getting into the data and just looking at what's going on. And Steam, fortunately, lets you get under the hood and really see how people are engaging and where they're coming from and stuff like that. So the first number I'm going to list out is the number of licenses that have been claimed. So if I was selling this product, the term I would use is sales. But because this is a free product, instead what this means is these are the number of Steam accounts that have added this project to their inventory. This is the number of people who have signed up to get a license attached to their account. And that number right now is 5,995. So just under 6,000 people have seen Shadowbox on Steam and added it to their account. And that is kind of a staggering number to me. Now, that is not the same as the number of players. I'm going to go over that in a second. It's a much smaller number. But the fact that almost 6,000 people have seen it and said, I want this on my account, is pretty awesome. And again, we're talking about something that has not even released a full week ago. So who knows? I'm not sure what on earth this thing is. That's kind of odd. Some kind of weird something or other. So the number of lifetime unique users, so this means the number of people who have launched the game, who have downloaded it and launched it from their account, is 71. So 71 people have actually launched the game so far. And again, for something that just came out less than a week ago, something that is not from a big studio or any studio. It's literally just something that I've been making on my home computer for the last 14 months. To have, when you take out me and my co-producers, right, it's still a very large number, you know, so you subtract, what, 3 people? So that's really, really awesome. And from that number, I can actually look at the regions, the places where people have been downloading this project. So let me look at that real quick. And some of these stats kind of lag behind one another, so this isn't going to be 100% accurate to today's data. But of that population, of those 71 people who have launched the game so far, 43.3% of them are from North America, which is to be expected. 21.6% are from Western Europe. 11%, over 11% are from Central Asia, and we can actually go into the breakdown and see which countries those are. So of players, visitors to Shadowbox, 40% of them are from the US, 10% are from the Russian Federation, 8.3% are German, 6.6% are from the UK, 3.3% are from Canada, 3.3% are from Australia, 3.3% are from France. And then there's a bunch of other countries where there's only one person so far that have jumped from, but again, it just kind of blows my mind that people from all over the world have seen this somehow and decided to play it. So as of now, I have at least one player from the following countries: Colombia, Indonesia, the Republic of Korea, which is South Korea, Ukraine, the Czech Republic, Poland, Taiwan, Vietnam, India, Australia, the Philippines, Sweden, Serbia, Turkey, and Iraq, which is just all over the place. We're nearly at one player from every continent, which is super cool. And again, this is less than 1 week since I've released this. And yeah, it's all pretty much in English, so I don't expect there to be a whole bunch of players from regions where English is not super common. So it's really cool to see people coming in from all over the world and trying to play this. We do have feedback coming in already, which is great. We already know of a few bugs that we're going to try to fix. As is with the case with any early access game, performance is something we really want to nail down pretty quickly. You know, making the game actually run better on as many computers as we can make it run on. You can't make something that runs on every PC. Some people are just running on ancient hardware that's not going to be able to handle a modern, you know, a modern project that was built in Unreal Engine 5, you know? So there's only so far I can push that. But I remember what it was like being a young kid and not having a really great computer. And I certainly would have been really into this project. I would have gone nuts over the idea of a free virtual museum, which makes sense because it's just been an idea that's been knocking around in my head since I was a little kid. But presumably other people as well who don't have great computers would love to be able to play this. So we're going to do our best. We're going to try to make it run on as many platforms as I can. We're also going to be pushing it not just on Windows, which is what it's currently available for. We're going to try to get it out on Linux as well as on Mac. We technically have already played it on a Steam Deck, which is a Linux-based, you know, a Steam OS Linux-based platform, and it does actually run, not well, but it does run. And we haven't even created a Linux version yet. So I'm optimistic that this will be something that you can play on a Steam Deck, which is really cool. I'm hoping that someday soon I'll be able to go to a conference with some friends of mine, other paleontologists, and say, well, I found something such and such ago, or did you hear about this or whatever, and be able to pull out a Steam Deck and launch the game and walk right up to the fossil and show it to them that way. That's kind of the end game in my purposes, And there's so much for me to learn about exhibitry design and how to make stuff interactive and make sense to other people who don't spend their entire lives working on this stuff. It's all good fun making a museum that makes sense to paleontologists, but we are a tiny, tiny, tiny fraction of the world population, so... Yes, there's a lot of terminology that I have to use, right? Latin words that can't be substituted for, more easier to use language. But that doesn't mean we can't do as good of a job as I can making stuff really accessible. And not just in that way, but physically accessible. So right now, one of the things we want to add sooner rather than later is controller support, official controller support. I've played it with my Steam controller, so I verified that it does kind of work. But again, we need to add official support. Because there are a lot of people who maybe prefer that, a lot of people who have physical disabilities who need to use a controller. And so I want to make sure that, if you're of that demographic, that you can enjoy this project the same way that other people can. Let me see if I can get my cat to meow into the microphone. Hey, August. Miss August. What? Are you a baby? Are you a little baby? Miss August. Are you a little baby cat? I don't know if any of that came through. I've also got access to play statistics, and the way that this stuff works, so it might sound a little strange that almost, what was the number again? Almost 6,000 people have added this program to their account, but just over 70 have actually played it so far. That's actually entirely predictable. The way that stuff works on Steam is that people will add, especially if it's a free game, people will just add whatever so that they have it. And so many people, even with paid software, will buy something and never actually play it or go years and years without playing it. So the fact that the number of unique lifetime users is a fraction of the number of people who actually have a license, totally unsurprising. That's totally normal. And one of the other things that's normal is that most people who even launch the game will only play it very briefly, and that's it. And the average playtime is severely altered by the small number of people who put in an incredibly high number of play hours. So if I pull up the lifetime play stats, and again, this is just from the first week. The average time played is about 3 hours and 40 minutes. That's the average time played. And only 57% of those players have played it for at least 10 minutes. So that means that most people, a majority of people play it for at least 10 minutes, 57%. And the remainder are people who might have had a bug, like launched it and had it crash, or just played around for a few minutes and haven't returned to it since. So again, that is entirely predictable. But what's really surprising to me, because in the state that the game is right now in beta 1.0, for me, I would say it's got about an hour's worth of content to look at. That's just from my perspective. Like, I can get through each of the exhibits and see everything to the depth that, that I want to in about an hour. That's partly because I built the thing, so I already know where everything is, right? None of it's new to me. But I figured, again, most people are not going to want to go and spend hours and hours looking super closely at each of the fossils and whatever. So I figured about an hour of playtime for this first beta version is about what is to be expected. And it says 24% have played for at least an hour. So about a quarter of players have put in and actually seen everything that I think is there so far. But beyond that, it says that 11%, so more than 1 in 10 of the people who have played it so far have put in at least 5 hours into this. 4% have put in at least 10 hours. And 1%, which has got to be, like, at this point, one person. So one person has put in at least 20 hours into this game so far. And that kind of blows my mind, because it's like, what on earth are you actually doing? I'm so glad that somebody is enjoying it that much, but, like, I don't know. That's kind of incredible. Could it be someone just opening the game and leaving it up on Steam? Yes, that happens all the time. But there's no achievement for playtime, right? I don't have any Steam achievements made so far. A lot of games that have like you get an achievement for playing for 1,000 hours, you will get people just opening the game and leaving it up for 1,000 hours to get that achievement. There's no incentive to do that here. So maybe it's someone left it up and forgot, or maybe someone has actually just played this for at least 20 hours since the game released less than a week ago. Or maybe it's a little bit of column A, a little bit of column B, you know? Either way, that's really impressive. If that's you, if you're the person who's doing that, send me a message, seriously. I want to know what you're doing. I want to know what you're up to. So that's pretty much it as far as the Shadowbox stats that I can share. And again, it's not been out for even a full week yet. And I'm going to try to get out, we know of a few bugs that we're going to try to fix. We have some quick performance enhancement changes that we can make that we're going to try to push out fairly soon. So if you've played Shadowbox already and it did not run very well on your computer, hold tight. We're going to try to do a fix pretty quickly. And that may or may not improve performance. We'll have to see. But there should be an update fairly soon, at least on performance. As far as content goes, we'll have to see. But if you go into the game already, you can see the different exhibits that I have slated to open this year in 2025. There are several others that I haven't listed out yet that I'm going to try to get out this year. And each of the exhibits that are already there have plenty of things that I would like to improve on already. So I'm not going to say right away how regular I think content updates are going to be. But this is certainly, I mean, it's shockingly easy to me as someone who just started doing game development 14 months ago, how easy it is actually to go in and make changes in Unreal Engine, export it, and then upload the new build onto Steam, and then push that update out. It's actually quite easy. So with that in mind, I'm hoping that I'll be able to make content updates to the game fairly regularly. And once we've got that first kind of performance quick bug fix, you know, beta 1.05 should hopefully be out fairly soon. And I'll try to sneak in some content updates into that too if I can. Here's kind of a cool thing I can point out. So the circular thing in the middle there is part of a crinoid stem. Crinoids are animals that were much more common back in the Paleozoic and are a little bit more rare today, but they're still around, just like brachiopods. Common in the past, rare today, but not fully extinct. And crinoids have a bunch of kind of stacked discs that sit one on top of another, and so they stand out from the seafloor. Most of them were rooted. Some of them are free swimming now. The sea lilies you see, as they're called, that are still around today, tend to be more kind of free swimming. The rooted ones are... There might still be some around. But anyway, in Paleozoic rocks, you will find crinoid discs everywhere, and that's what this little circle is. So that's what they look like kind of from a top-down perspective. And then from the side, they obviously stack one on top of another. So this thing you're looking at right there are two different crinoid discs, two segments of the stem that are still partly articulated, so they're still connected where they were in life, and it's lying on its side. So you're seeing these two pieces kind of lying on their side there. They kind of look like a Lego piece that's been embedded in limestone, and I promise that's not what this is. I'm seeing a bunch of people jumping in and out of the view count. If you'd like to stick around and post a message, if you've got any questions about where you're looking at, any questions about my work or about Shadowbox or anything like that, now's the time to put them in. If you're like the guy who was harassing me last month, and you'd like to make really weird comments about what you conceive, what you perceive as being, my body and my identity, feel free to make weird, rude comments too. That was really funny. You are going to get banned eventually, but I find it really entertaining when total lunatics decide to show up and tell me what they think is going on. I've been talking about this with my partner a lot lately, but some people look at me as if I'm someone who doesn't have like an excess of personality, right? A difficult personality at that, and they just kind of project whatever they want onto me like I'm a blank slate. It's just so strange, And then to have the audacity to get mad at me when I don't live up to the imagined identity that you're projecting onto me is just additionally so bizarre. But what can I say? There are lots of people out there in the world who are extremely unwell. And if I can goad you into harassing me as someone who does not care, instead of harassing someone else, somebody young who might actually be really messed up, I'm okay with that. I can take the heat. Go for it. These fossils dating back to the Upper Ordovician means that they come from a time period in which there are no animals on land, first of all. It's debatable as to whether there's any life on land at this point. The earliest evidence of land plants that we have come from the Silurian, which comes right after this. So in the early Paleozoic, you have the Cambrian period, then the Ordovician period, then the Silurian. And we have fossils of very small land plants from the Silurian. But whether or not this shallow marine environment represents, a sea that may have had life living on the shores nearby, unclear, and probably not, actually. At this point, life may have only been in the sea, and these critters are adapted for that kind of environment. a lot of life, life being in the water is one thing, but you should keep in mind that life was kind of restricted in those early periods to the shallow water. It's the photic zone, and in places where there's actual sea floor, right, in the shallows, the continental shelves and things, that's where life actually is happening early on. Because you not only need light to generate, to photosynthesize, to generate energy, and all of the other organisms that live off of the photosynthesizers all have to be there. But a lot of the animals that we're looking at, brachiopods for sure, they're not free-floating. They need somewhere solid to attach themselves to. The trilobites, they live on the floor. We did have various types of fish and sharks that lived at that time. Now, those categories, fish and shark, are kind of an interesting thing phylogenetically. When you try to build a family tree of just fish, you end up including all tetrapods, all the things that live on land that have 4 limbs. That includes frogs and snakes, which are tetrapods despite having no legs, and human beings, and all mammals and dinosaurs and birds, right? So fish is kind of an interesting category that exists more in our language and in our human concepts than actually in nature. It's an interesting conundrum. And shark is kind of the same way. There's a lot of somewhat related, but also in many ways not very closely related animals that all get called sharks that are not closely related at all. A lot of these fragments here are really interesting because I don't know what they go to. I think like this flat piece right here is probably part of a trilobite. Those are the large animals in some ways back in those times. There's definitely some pieces of crinoids, some of these dotted things you would call bryozoa colonies, but like, yeah. And this one I think is another trilobite tail right there. Take a photo of that. At this point, there are a lot of armored fish that are living in these shallow seas. Types of animals called placoderms, which are not around today. more pieces of a crinoid stem right there. 3 discs still articulated. Got about 15 minutes going on the stream before I wrap up. So again, if anyone has any questions they'd like to drop in the chat, please feel free. One more thing I'd like to say about Shadowbox is that this is certainly not something that I intend that was built to try and replace collections or museums. Entirely the opposite aim. In Arizona, part of what really hamstrings us from having the same kind of robust paleontological programs, you know, training and schooling and that kind of thing. In the past, you know, Arizona was one of the best places in the world to go to learn and get a degree in paleontology, and that is no longer the case. And part of the problem is that our collections are not in a very good state. And a lot of our collections are not able to take new material. Oh, I see. Yeah, Cam showed up. Cam, this is the piece that you gave me at SVP. So you can probably tell me way more about what I'm looking at than I can. Yeah, there's a little piece of crinoid. I love the little sort of sea star shape that they get. Anyway, nothing about a 3D model of a fossil replaces the need for the actual piece, you know? All the fossils you see in Shadowbox represent a real fossil that needs to be kept safe somewhere else. A lot of them are from... Those that aren't things in my personal collection are stuff that are in public collections that need to be kept safe for... you know, in perpetuity, so that researchers can actually, you know, continue to test the kind of assumptions that we make about what we see. It's not enough just to get something in a collection, publish on it, and then let it rot. You need to keep stuff safe so that future researchers can challenge our paradigms. And that's a really important thing. And what I'm doing is not trying to replace collections in any way. What I'm trying to do is allow for a safe way for more people than is normally possible to look at original fossil material that cannot be damaged. And from the time that I've spent as a docent in a natural history museum and as an intern, I know for a fact that people really, really love and really want to jump around and climb on the exhibit tree and stuff like that. People want to touch real fossils, get close up and look at them. And it's just kind of not safe to do that for the fossil in most circumstances. But in a virtual in a virtual setting, there was absolutely no reason to stop people from doing it. So you can download Shadowbox and run up and down the tail of a dinosaur called Sonorosaurus. You can jump on the back of Zuniceratops. You can do all those things. It will not harm them. The real fossils are still in a collection somewhere, doing just fine. Nice. Yeah, Cam is letting me know the all the little shell bits here are all parts of trilobites. And I have not done a whole lot of, you know, kind of Paleozoic invert stuff. I think I've maybe once collected a trilobite. And so that's one of the things that I want to do more of in the coming years. And that's why, by the way, if Cam is still on here, part of the reason why I was telling you, you know, if you want to come and collect in the Paleozoic in the Southwest, I will take you wherever you want to go, that I actually know how to get to. But I want to go to the Southeast and to the Midwest and collect all kinds of material from those areas as well. And it's because at that time I was plotting constructing Shadowbox, right? I was thinking about building this virtual museum, and it's not sufficient to have all of these exhibits that just show Arizona, right? And it won't. Over time, I'm going to be building exhibits as I go into more public collections and scan more material, stuff that is well outside of Arizona. Right now, it is very southwestern focused. And so I'll for sure be visiting collections that have already collected fossils from those areas, but I also want to do a lot of that myself. So I'm going to focus on this brachiopod here. Go ahead and let me know if you know what this is. Because otherwise I'm going to have to pull up some papers and try to figure it out. I was just knocking around in a Devonian deposit in Pennsylvania. I didn't make a full video out of it because I was only out there for 20 minutes. It was snowing and cold as hell. But I pulled out a couple of brachiopods that I'm going to try to identify. And man, Paleozoic research, a lot of those papers that you have access to are so old. Like, some of the stuff I was pulling on, like the Silurian rocks we were looking at, didn't find anything in them, but looking at the Silurian rocks in and around Allentown, some of those, like the most recent literature I could find on it was papers from like the 60s. It's such a privilege in vert paleo that you tend to be able to find stuff that's more recent than, like, before my parents were born. So he says, looks like Herbatella. All right, I will write that down and pull some lit on that. I think this year, if I manage to be able to do a little bit of travel that isn't strictly speaking for business stuff or work related, although everything I do is kind of a work related trip. Yeah, I'm still learning my Paleozoic brachiopods too, for sure. I'm way behind on that stuff. I really want to get out to New Orleans because I need to see a modern, swamp deposit so I can better understand the Cretaceous-aged formations that I've been working in. It's one thing to have been visiting this extinct swamp for well over a decade, coming up on 15 years before too long. 15 years in the Menifee. I've still never seen a real swamp in real life. There's only so much you can learn from looking at, like, pictures and videos and stuff. And there is an Amtrak that goes from Tucson to New Orleans, so I think I might try to shoot out to Louisiana, maybe for a long weekend, and just do a little bit of ecotourism. Go look at the swamps. Maybe eat some fried alligator, I don't know. Maybe I'll learn something about Deinosuchus by eating fried alligator. Who knows? Let's see. Sometime, potentially in the next 5 to 10 minutes, my roommate, co-host, programmer, and partner are all gonna walk in. They're all the same person. Walk in from their job. Or maybe not. Depends on traffic. In other news, I've got some new prep equipment that I got over the holidays, and if you've watched the Menifee Expedition 2024 videos, you know I collected a lot of really cool large reptile stuff, dinosaurs, some turtles, material that needs to be kind of cleaned up, prepped out of the matrix. And it, from here on out, is kind of fallen on me to get that done. So we went and got some new prep material, and I've got one of our volunteers who has been doing the prep for a while, who's based out of California, is going to be driving out to Tucson tomorrow to come and help me learn how to do it, so that you know, the stuff that you see can actually be published on relatively, you know, quickly. In paleontology, relatively quickly can mean like a fast turnaround means like 2 to 3 years. That's fast. Finding something in the field, getting it cleaned, and have a preliminary paper on it, 2 to 3 years is fast. A lot of stuff, particularly if it's a big piece, if it's a important, complex piece, you're looking at easy 5 to 10 years. Some things take multiple decades to actually publish. And some of that comes down to, again, there not being nearly as many paleontologists as there is work for a paleontologist to do. There is so much work out there that's still not been done, and so few people who actually get to do that kind of work. It's really frustrating. So the process is quite slow. But I'm doing my best to try to get that stuff out so that people can see it, that I can take high-resolution photographs of the material and post it places. There's stuff in Shadowbox in the Menifee exhibit that is stuff that I found and scanned during the 2024 May field trip. And the same thing is going to happen this year. You know, there's going to be stuff that I find in May that I'm going to scan and put in Shadowbox that people will be able to look at for free, probably not long after I get back, which I think is really, really cool, because that basically never happens. You know, in a brick and mortar museum, stuff that's discovered is not going to be on display for, again, years at a time usually. So that's just one of the many things that this virtual format that I'm experimenting with, and that I'm really hoping other people look at and say, oh, this is what we should have been doing with our collections and with our 3D scanning tools this entire time, you know? Oh. Okay, I'm going to pull this up because I saw this earlier and I have no idea what this is. Does this look like anything to you? To me, it looks like some kind of grotesque crab leg on a stick. Like a cave painting of a prehistoric corn dog. You know what I mean? Might be another cross-section of a brachipod. Okay. Yeah, hell, I don't know. See if I can get close and turn the exposure up. So, I think it actually might be two pieces. I think that thing sitting on top is not actually part, that little long piece there on the right, I think it's disconnected from the other piece. That's my guess. Anyway, going into the new year, I've got kind of different obligations. I've got a part-time job that's starting, and I applied to a master's late last year. I'm not going to find out if I got it for some months. But my schedule is subject to change, and I'm bringing that up because I've been doing Microstream. Yeah, when pieces are broken, it's really hard to tell. That's why looking at complete material in a collection is super important. So otherwise, I wouldn't have any idea what we're doing here. Anyway, my schedule is kind of subject to change. It may be that Mondays from 4 to 5 p.m. might not be what I can continue doing, and that can be a good thing in that if there's a time that works better for other people, maybe earlier in the day on Monday, maybe later in the day on Monday. You know, maybe this is something that I do from like 5 to 6 local time instead of 4 to 5. I'm not sure. It seems to me that people tend to show up around the end of the stream, so it could be possible that starting at 5 and going until 6 works better. This is another cool piece. Check that out. My cat has given up on pestering me for food for now and is asleep on the floor. But the sun's starting to go down, and in her mind that means that it's time for her to get her food, so she'll be back. She'll be back at it. Okay. One last thing I'm going to do before we end the stream is I'm going to put my contact info in the chat here. Hold on. So that's my official contact for my LLC, so it's not personal information. But in case you're watching this and you want a way to send me a message, that would be my preferred way to do it. Since I'm not on Twitter anymore, I don't know that I actually have a way to contact a lot of people. So it would be awesome if we're not already connected on Discord, and you want to send me, you know, connect by email, do anything like that. There we go. August has woken up. Did you hear me talking about you? Did you hear me talking about you? Yeah. Okay. I'm going to wrap this up. Thank you for watching. Thanks everyone for sticking around. And thanks again to Cam for giving me this piece. It's been really awesome looking at it close up. And I go back and save all those photos and see if see what I can do with these pieces. But I would love to spend some time someday. We will find out. Love to spend some time someday collecting way more material out in the road cuts and the Southeast and the Midwest and all that good stuff, so that I can put it in Shadowbox so that people can see it for free anywhere in the world. Isn't that a cool thought? All right. Thanks for watching. I will see you guys next time.